We're at FOSDEM 2019 this week, having fun. We'd never leave you in a lurch, of course, so we have recorded an interview with Niklas Seising of the FreeBSD graphics team for you. Enjoy! BSD Now, episode 283, Graphical Interface, View. Recorded for the 30th of January 2019. Hello, I'm your host, Benedikt Reuschling.
And I'm Alan Jude.
And as we mentioned, we have an interview, and it's going to start right now. So we have our first interview this year with Niklas Seising, who has been on our schedule of people who wanted to interview, but now we made it happen. So welcome, Niklas. And we have, of course, since you're the first time here on BSD Now, we have our very first question for you that we tell everyone. Give us a little bit about your background and how you got started with Unix and BSD.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Niklas. I'm an IT consultant here in Stockholm, Sweden, up in the cold north. And I started in Unix and Linux, or Unix in general, at the turn of the century, I guess, or a bit later, when I got my first own computer, which I could do whatever I wanted with. And I've always had a computer interest in this Linuxy thing. And so it was only natural to try it out, and I kind of stuck. So actually, when I started, I intended to try out Linux, but someone said, "Hey, you should try this FreeBSD stuff instead." And that was 4.7 release, I think. And I tried that, and I liked it. And then I tried Linux, and it was weird. It didn't do it the way I was used to. So I stuck with FreeBSD. And since then I've tried, exactly. And since then I've tried them all, basically. Well, not all, but my day job involves a lot of Linux, so it's hard to escape from.
So how did you first get started working on the graphics stack and all the exports and so on in FreeBSD?
That was kind of an accident. I started working in documentation, which Benedikt knows, since he was kind of mentoring me a bit. But then I took a course in graphics programming at the university, and I needed an updated graphics stack with better support for OpenGL and KMS and all that stuff. And this was back when an updated KMS graphics driver was floating around as a patch set that Kim was developing, and there was a development repository of graphics stuff, or updated graphics boards floating around somewhere. I think it was Koopmast and Martin Wilke that was mostly working in that area, and I kind of thought, like, I need this. I'll pick out the pieces from here and there and put it together, run it in my laptop, and then I got more and more involved, like, pull, here's updates, this doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. So the ball kept rolling, basically. I kept doing more and more things, and since I was a student, and perhaps not the best student in the world, I could spend quite some time on it. And then all of a sudden, right after I got my doc bit, or at the same time as I got my doc commit bit, I got a message on IRC from either Coop or Martin saying, "Hey, here's your ports commit bit. We're tired of doing this for you. Now you can commit it yourself."
Mm-hmm. Perfect timing.
And that was in 2012, I think.
And then I think you kind of got away from it a little bit, and then we had EuroBSDCon in Stockholm.
Yeah, I kind of, when I was a student and I lived in Linköping, and then I moved back to Stockholm and got a full-time job. And I didn't drop out completely, but I had less time than I had as a student, so I I kind of couldn't work as much as I used to do. And there are some other priorities stuff. I mean, life happened basically.
Yeah.
And then it was EuroBSDCon 2015 in Stockholm, and it was kind of I can't not go to EuroBSDCon in Stockholm since it's a 20-minute tube ride away.
Perfect. Yeah.
And that kind of got me going again, so I got a bit more active. And then I switched employer to a company called B3Init almost 2 years ago, and that gave me some more time to, or made me shift some priorities, and I can work some more on this.
Yeah.
And actually,
go ahead.
A bit of an interesting story about Init is that some of you might remember them as they sponsored EuroBSDCon 2015 in Stockholm, and we hosted the Dev Summit at their old offices.
Oh yeah, that was great. A lot of hackers in this very small office, but still, it was an interesting atmosphere.
Yeah. And that was before I was employed by them. But yeah, now I am.
Mm-hmm. And it's similar story for a bunch of people that, going to a conference gets you, really excited about BSD, or just helps deal with sometimes you feel like you're working in a vacuum or whatever. Whereas when you get in a room with all the people, suddenly you realize, what you're doing this work for, or what the value is, or that people are actually using the stuff that you do on their laptop or whatever. And it helps make it feel like it's worth doing all the work.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Oh, since Alan's mentioned laptops, can you tell us the current status with the FreeBSD graphics stack? Because I think a lot of laptop users are looking forward to that.
Well, it's mostly working, or it works on my computer at least. There's always issues it will probably not get as good as on Windows or on Mac OS X, to be honest. But it's working, and we try to keep it working. There will always be issues. There will be issues with certain hardware and certain combinations of hardware. But I use FreeBSD as my daily driver on my laptop, and to some extent my desktop. I think I have a Windows desktop, but I mostly used it for computer games, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very impressed once we did the current uplift that I went to Lenovo, bought the newest laptop, installed FreeBSD on it, installed the graphics drivers, and it all just worked. ASUS resumed like hundreds of times without problems. I think one time at Cambridge, I think I showed you, it did a funny thing where it didn't actually go to sleep, but it thought it was.
Yeah.
But that only ever happened the one time. It was a fluke.
Yeah,
it was just like the screen was still on, displaying stuff, but the power button was strobing like it was sleeping.
Something is fired, but I haven't seen it on my gear, and
I've never seen it the second time either.
Had bad luck. Mm-hmm. Speaking of suspend and receive it's mostly working. There is some weird stuff happening when you've used a lot of swap space that makes mice sometimes it just freezes. But that's for another time. I think I haven't had time to actually look at what's going on. I just noticed when I'm using swap space, I just switch it off instead. It's other than that, it's working. We're working on getting better documentation, getting honing down the rough edges a bit regarding documentation and what you need to install, and basically getting the experience a bit smoother, so to say, so that you don't need to. You can get it working, so that you don't need to do all this weird shenanigans to get it working.
Yeah, to get a graphical environment.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's mostly synced with upstream, basically, or is there some gaps?
There are some gaps. I just before around Christmas, I did a big push to update the input stack. So apart from libinput, that's up to date. Then there is a patch for libinput in our dev repo. Other than that, Mesa is, I think, two bigger releases behind, and they release quite often, so it's not as big of a deal. I think we updated during the autumn, and there are patches for this, and I hope to get them in during the first quarter of 2019. That's the plan, at least. And then the big thing that's lagging behind is basically the X server itself. So that's the next bigger thing that needs to be done and needs to be ported and updated and tested and hopefully pushed into previous ports.
Yeah, that kind of leads into the next question: is what challenges did you face trying to maintain the FreeBSD graphics stack, other than the fact that it's a constantly moving target?
Well, for one thing, we're a small group of people, and I don't have very much time to work on it, and so that's one challenge is time and developer bandwidth, basically. And the other big challenge is basically hardware support. There is so many different combinations of hardware, FreeBSD versions, of graphics adapters, and it's very hard. It's basically impossible to cover them all. So we need help with people testing on various kinds of hardware. I'm trying to build up so that I have access to at least some samples of Intel hardware and some samples of AMD or ATI hardware, but yeah, that's the other big thing is finding hardware to test. And for instance, I had an example where a friend of mine had a crash in neither of us working on the graphics stack, and several of us we couldn't reproduce it. So this was only happening on my friend's graphics adapter, and none of the ones we had.
Yeah, that's difficult. The reproducibility of those once in a lifetime, once in a full moon errors.
Well, yeah, it wasn't. It was a consistent crash.
Yeah,
but only on this specific hardware, and I'm not a kernel developer. I'm not doing the actual driver. Johannes Lundberg is, so I couldn't just take my friend's laptop, borrow it for a week, and then debug it either, because I didn't really have the knowledge to do it.
Mm. Okay, you mentioned the graphics team. How many people are on that? And you mentioned a little bit, but what kind of help could you need there besides testing?
So we're a handful of people. There is me mostly working the port side, and Johannes Lundberg, who is porting the Linux drivers or the graphics drivers from Linux, and updating the Linux KPI to make it possible to run the Linux drivers with as little or as small changes as possible. And then there is another Johannes Dietrich. He's maintaining or working with the graphics driver ports, the actual thing that's in the ports tree mostly. And then there is a guy called Pete that is helping me out in ports, and I'm trying to teach him more about the ports tree, and he's also writing a bit of, or trying to keep our documentation up to date and things like that. And then we have Warner Losh is basically core liaison or something like that. Mm-hmm. He helps out basically mostly with sometimes with messaging. He helps out hosting our developer meeting we have every other week. And generally someone that's been in the project very long and knows a lot of things in the project and is on course, so he can help us if it's needed there. And then Matt Macy has is doing some work on PowerPC 64, getting Linux KPI to run there, some things like that.
So it's a handful of people.
It's a handful of people, but I think Johannes and me are those who spend most time, and then the other Johannes and Pete are spending some time at it. Well,
but it sounds like you could use more people that are ports, more people that are docs, and so on.
Yeah, it's more people that are ports, that know about ports, definitely. It's also a bit of an onboarding question because since we're so few, it's hard to basically to mentor people or to get people
Kind of
into familiar with
dependencies.
Exactly.
Yeah, the mentoring takes a bit of time away from your normal work, but later on it works out great because you have two people then, you and the other person who can do the work. Okay.
So shifting gears a little bit, you've been doing FreeBSD ports since you said 2012, and you ran
I've been a contributor since even earlier. Right. I mean, I've been a FreeBSD contributor for over 10 years.
And so you ran the Poudre tutorial last year at EuroBSDCon. What kind of feedback did you get from that?
Oh, most of the feedback I got was good. It was, I mean, considering the number of people who attended the tutorial, it's probably something that's very useful. And I think ports is it's a good way of getting people involved in the project. Just adapt a port or two. If it's small ports, it doesn't require very much of your time, and then you can get more and more involved. And if you're working on FreeBSD in your day job, perhaps you have internal software, and distributing that to your systems using ports or packages is a nice way. So it's useful for that use case as well.
Yeah, I think that's why it was such a popular tutorial, because it kind of sits at that cross section of people that actually want to work on developing ports and being able to test them, because Poudre is a good tool for that, but also sysadmins that just want to be able to deploy their package set with customizations to their servers, and a couple other things. And, Poudre is also now growing the ability to generate system images, so you can build pre-built VMs or ZFS images using it as well, possibly with pre-installed packages even. So I think it'll be an even bigger thing going forward.
Yeah, and I have some loose ideas about extending the tutorial to basically to a full day or something like that, but I haven't.
A full day.
I haven't done. I mean, they're in the back of my head somewhere, pitched out currently. But I think having perhaps not a full day, but having like because there was a beginner's tutorial, but having a more advanced ports tutorial where we perhaps don't talk as much about Poudre, but go into more in depth about ports and dependency handling and all.
Yeah. There's always new things going on in the ports tree.
Yeah, exactly.
You could do one on flavors, and hopefully by EuroBSDCon this year there might be sub packages and all that. And so, especially if something new shows up in ports like sub packages, it'd be really good to have a tutorial there to help porters get caught up on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I see that in my tutorials. Like the first time I give a new tutorial, it's always like I'm not sure how people will react to that. And then there's feedback, and then I do it the second time, incorporating that feedback, and then there's already an updated version, and then the third time it's already much more, because you always get questions that you could put into slides or add more stuff that people are interested in. So yeah, the tutorials have their own way of enhancing and getting better over the course of their lifetime.
Yeah.
So, since we know each other, but we also mentioned a couple of times on the show here, we know that you are involved in organizing the Stockholm BSD user group meeting. Can you tell us a bit about that, what's involved in that, and how it is structured?
Yeah, so BSD User Stockholm, I think I call it, is a meetup or user group for all the BSDs. It's not FreeBSD specific, although I'm a FreeBSD developer. And it was something that was kind of been brewing in my head for a couple of, or for a bit before I started it, obviously, because the BSD community in Sweden and in Stockholm was kind of small, and sometimes I even felt like, I'm basically the only one. I know one other guy in the west of Sweden, and that's Joel. And so it's been brewing a bit. And then when I went to conferences, you met people. Oh, there is someone there speaking Swedish. I wonder who that is. And we hosted EuroBSDCon in Stockholm, and there was some people interested there. And then when I switched employer in almost 2 years ago, I basically got to a place where I could, who was interested in me doing these things, and where I had a space where I actually could host the events, not only arrange them, but host them. So that made it very convenient. So we have had a bunch of meetups at B3 Init's offices in central Stockholm. And thanks to Init, it's been possible for me to arrange them, and we have had some place to be, and we have Init has provided something to eat and something to drink, things like that, and that's been very, very generous of them. Mm-hmm. And organization-wise, I guess I'm doing the heavy lifting. I have some help, especially while the event is, so to speak, during the event evening. So I get some help with fixing food and opening doors because the office is locked, and general surrounding that. And so I have some help. It's one guy called Jakob that lives here in Stockholm, and Janne Johansson, who was part of the organizing team for EuroBSDCon 2015, is helping out a bit as well. And then, yeah.
So do you have any kind of recommendations for people that want to start a local user group like you did?
Just do it. It doesn't have, you have to have some place to be. And it can be as large or small as you want, preferably with some sort of projector or screen, so you can have presentations. But basically, start up small. Food and drink is nice, but definitely not mandatory in any way. You can have a meetup, you can have some things, and then you can go out, have a drink together at the pub or something close by.
And like you can go as simple as the Portland group and just be like, hey, if you want to talk about BSD, we're all going to go to this pizza place on the last Thursday of the month.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't even have to have computers to do it. And then once you've got a group of people, it becomes easier to be like, all right, we'll go get a space and set up a projector and actually have a meeting or whatever. But sometimes it's just as easy as everybody who wants to, we're going to go to this place at this time, and just get the word out.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah. Or like local computer clubs or universities often have interested folks that also have the room capacities available.
Exactly. If you're attending a university or working at a university, at least from my own experience at the university, it was usually possible to find a room somewhere where you could have some people. And also when hosting, I mean, having someone talk about something is very nice and have some content. But just meeting up and talk for a bit and get to know people in the area with common interests, that's very good as well. Even if you don't have, we have had some talks on our meetups, but we also had interesting discussions and people just having a drink and talking to each other.
Yeah, it's like a mini conference that's happening more often, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's also growing your event. I mean, the first time it's always not sure how many people will show up, but now that you have like the third or fourth iteration, it's already a couple of people, right?
Yeah, I think we've been 20, 25 people for the last couple. So we have had 4 or 5 meetings. I'm actually not sure when you say it, but I think we have had 4 meetings. And it's been between 20 and 25 people for the last 2 or 3. For the last 2, I think. It varies a little bit. And one thing to remember as an organizer is a lot of people will sign up, but far from everyone who's signed up will actually show up.
Yeah.
At least that's true. I'm using Meetup to organize it, and at least it's true there. So you kind of get a feel. I remember the first Meetup I ordered pizza, way too much pizza, so we had
piles of pizza.
If you don't order enough pizza, everybody will show up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you kind of after like 1 or 2 meetups, you kind of get a feel for how many people usually show up, and you can order food based on that.
Mm. Yeah, that's
amazing. If you're getting food and drinks, of course.
Right, and if your meeting is hours long or whatever, then if you run out of pizza, you can just order more.
Yeah,
but you can't unorder pizza.
Yeah, well,
true that.
Not anymore.
So anyway,
and also remember,
go ahead.
Pizza. It doesn't have to be pizza. We've done salads or salad bowls a couple of times. Having cold food is actually. It could be a good idea. It's easier sometimes because I can get it before the meetup starts, so I can have it ready and just store it in our office, and then I don't have to be ready for when the pizza delivery comes. And if someone is having a talk, then either the pizza gets cold or everybody has to interrupt in the middle of talk and get pizza and stuff like that. So there might be a benefit to having cold food sometimes as well.
So anyway, speaking of conferences, Benedict has down here just to ask about what conferences you're planning to go to and where people might be able to get in touch with you. Yeah.
So the first conference is I'll be at FOSDEM.
Which is only a couple of weeks away.
Yeah,
which is only a couple of weeks away. I don't know. It's like 2 or 3 weeks. So I'll be there, and we're both at the FreeBSD Dev Summit, and I'm giving a talk on FreeBSD graphics in the BSD Dev Room on Saturday.
Oh, excellent!
I think the talk is on Saturday in the BSD Dev Room anyway.
It sounds
and yeah. And when I'm not giving my talk, I hope to go and see some other talks, and then I will, if there's anything like last year, I will be at the FreeBSD Foundation table in the halls. And after that, if you're kind of local to Stockholm, there's always the next FreeBSD meetup or the next BSD meetup in Stockholm, and it's in February. And we can add the date to the show notes, but I forgot it. And this time we will be in not in the B3 Init offices or B3 offices in central Stockholm. We will be in southern Stockholm at the offices of Ping Pong AB, where FreeBSD committer Girgen is working.
Hmm. And there's also FOSS North, I hear, in April.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's FOSS North in April. FOSS North is it's general open source conference in Gothenburg in Sweden in 8th and 9th of April, and so I will be there. I just got an okay from my boss to go there yesterday or today, and preceding that on Sunday the 7th of April, there will be because FOSS North are arranging a community day on April 7th. So there will be a FreeBSD event in Gothenburg on April 7th. The details aren't set. I'm not entirely sure what it will be, but it will most likely be some way of having some developers, some people working on FreeBSD, and then showcasing the project to interested people to try to draw some new volunteers, basically.
Yeah, excellent.
And this FreeBSD event will be hosted in the B3 offices in Gothenburg.
Yeah, it's always good to have new conferences on our calendar. I mean, we cannot go to all of them. At one point, we have to be at home or work. Well, but it's good to have new conferences and showing presence there.
Yeah. So I hope to.
You want to reach people that don't know about the other conferences yet.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope to draw some people, some of the people here in Stockholm, and then hopefully there's some people in Gothenburg they're interested. And if you're from further away and want to come, that's great as well.
Mm-hmm. And you're also planning for BSDCan, if that's on your... You've been there a couple of years ago.
I've been to BSDCan almost 3 years ago, 2016. I'm still hoping to go to both Asia BSDCon in March, and if there's an Asia BSDCon, and then BSDCan in May. But those are still on the maybe list, although
there's still time.
I hope to make them. The FOSDEM and the FOSS North are in the confirmed.
They're fixed.
Yeah, they're fixed. And then I will go to you if nothing strange happens. I will go to EuroBSDCon in
September.
In September, yeah.
You could actually drive there. It's probably not too far by car.
It's drivable. I don't know exactly about 500 kilometers or something like that. I won't drive there because I have no idea where to put the car afterwards. I don't really have a car, so it will be either by train or by air. But it's still some time away, so I have time to make plans for it.
Yeah. It's not far out from here on.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to mention before we let you go?
Yeah. I kind of had to do this. I want to do this. I have to give a big thank you to my employer B3 Init, because starting from basically 1st of January, but from now and for half a year, I'm actually getting some paid time to work on FreeBSD. It's 2 hours a week. It doesn't sound very much. It's a great deal more than I've ever had before. So I have to say thank you to B3 Init for that. And the plan is I'll do this, as I said, for the first half of 2019. And then we'll do some sort, me and B3 Init will do some sort of evaluation and see what happens from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
okay, so thank you.
Oh. Pardon?
Oh, I said thank you to Init for that.
Yeah.
And thank you for all the work that you're doing in the graphics stack and with the graphics team going forward, bringing us the latest graphics updates. and all the other stuff that you're doing around the project here and there, if time permits.
Yeah. And I guess it's soon time for a new round of FreeBSD quarterly status reports. So there will be a graphics reports in there detailing what's happened in the fourth quarter of 2018.
Oh yeah, excellent. People are looking for those. We haven't gotten up to snuff with the latest status reports, but now that we have them back again in a new format, we'll try to keep it up in that way. Okay, so yeah, thanks again for agreeing to this interview, and
thank you.
Since you see us I know you're listening to the show as much as you, as often you can get the free time on Wednesday when we record this live. So yeah, thanks again, and see you around soon enough at FastNav.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
So we hope you enjoyed the interview with Niklas. Of course, we couldn't leave you with just an interview. We also have feedback and questions, 3 of them. And if you want to send us as well, then send it to feedback@bsdnow.tv or tweet at us.
Yep, it's at BSDNow.
At BSDNow. So the first is Casey with a TrueOS question. Goes like this. It seems like the TrueOS website is vague on the improvements TrueOS makes to FreeBSD. I also can't find much in the way of documentation on TrueOS like I can find for FreeNAS. You went to the Telegram room linked on the TrueOS website, and they seem to be confused as to what I'm asking about when you wanted to know about the current TrueOS instead of the older desktop version of TrueOS. The last update to the TrueOS blog says that they are going to be releasing a community forum in about a week. That was written on the 6th of June, 2018. Do you have the inside scoop of what is going on?
So TrueOS now is basically just the vanilla FreeBSD with the changes they have, like replacing rc.d with OpenRC. I think they still replace OpenSSL with LibreSSL. And the ports tree, they use a modified version that has a lot different defaults, more tuned towards desktop and have everything on except for when it doesn't work, rather than making lighter packages or whatever. As far as a forum and so on, I think the plan changed there, and instead there's the Project Trident website, and check that if you're looking for like the desktop OS. But basically, TrueOS has gone back to what TrueOS originally meant before they renamed PCBSD to TrueOS, which is the underlying operating system used to make FreeNAS. So it's their branch of FreeBSD with their changes to support FreeNAS, and then a bunch of tooling that allows GhostBSD and Project Trident and anybody else who wants to build a desktop version of FreeBSD on top of TrueOS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so it's their science experiment. I don't know if they have an enumerated list somewhere of what they've changed. It would be interesting to know that.
Yeah, we'll definitely watch that and see how it's developing. And I guess the link to the forums thing will disappear magically at some point in the future.
We'll have to poke somebody over there to make them clean that up or actually do what it says, one of the two.
Yeah, I guess they watched the episode and we'll make things happen. Okay, but it's definitely a good thing to know about that and having the distinctions there between the projects.
Yep.
Okay, I guess that's answering all that. The next one is Troils about ZFS send versus ZFS send-R. The option there is important.
Capital R.
Capital R, yeah, that's also important. So here writes, Hi Alan and Benedict, I have a question regarding ZFS send. In which situation would it be preferable to use the capital R option? To take a simple example of doing daily incremental backups to a remote system. In what scenarios would it be more optimal to do a ZFS send, and when would ZFS send-R be preferable?
So the -R makes what's called a replication stream, which is basically just meaning recursive. It has all of the self-contained bits. So if you have one file system you're sending, then with or without R doesn't really make a difference. However, if the dataset has child datasets, the capital R will send the incremental for all of the datasets, not just the one. So for example, on my laptop, I have a data set called SVN, and inside of that is a data set for each project I'm working on. When it's time to send all that from my build server to my laptop to go to a conference like FOSDEM, I take a recursive snapshot, so ZFS snapshot-R of the SVN directory called before FOSDEM 2019. And then I could do ZFS send capital R, some other options, and capital I, the last conference I went to, and then, SVN at the before FOSDEM 2019, and that will send not just the SVN dataset, but the SVN dataset and all the other datasets that have that snapshot will all be bundled into one stream and sent over for me to ZFS receive.
Yeah, similar
capital
example.
R also implies copying the properties, so -P and a couple other things like that. The other main reason to use capital R is if you're doing anything involving clones. So normally, if you ZFS send a clone, it will send the whole thing and turn it not into a clone on the other side.
In a regular data
can
set.
be useful. If that's what you want, that's useful. But if you want to, if you have a data set and it has 3 clones and you want to continue to share the space of the common files, then if you do a -R, it will send only the differences from the parent in the snapshot range or whatever, and keep it as a clone. So I guess for the clone case, it only really counts for the full send, not for the incremental. But yes, if you do a full send of a clone without -R, it will send the clone and make it its own standalone data set. If you do it with the capital R, it will send the other bit, and I think it depends on the parent already being there, but you can send it separately or whatever. But yes, so -R has implications for clones and so on. But in general, it kind of means recursive. So it means not just the data set you specify, but that and all of its children.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that clears that up for you.
Yep. Typical
If you're sending
home
one
use
data
example.
set, if you're sending just one data set, it doesn't really matter. It would be the -P for properties. That is one of the things that's implied by capital R that you might be missing out on.
Yep. And especially when you're replicating home directories, you also want to get everything below /home.
Yeah.
So that's the question about ZFS send. And the next and last one is about orphan packages from Matt Clark. That goes, hi, thanks for the great show. Oh, sure. You're welcome. I have a question about orphan packages. So when he upgrades from FreeBSD 11 to 12, he runs a number of jails and found that in his MariaDB 5.6 database jail, the MariaDB 5.6 was failing to start. And when you ran it manually, it failed to start due to missing files in base, and then noticed that the package MariaDB 5.6 was not available, so updated to a newer version, which resolved the issue.
Yeah, so MariaDB switched to like 10.2 or whatever. And I'm guessing possibly just because you went so long without upgrading, that you didn't get the change properly. But also when they change the name of packages, sometimes this happens. So there's 2 ways to address that. You can set the origin of the old package so that when you do package upgrade, it'll upgrade it. And it'll notice that, MariaDB 5.6 is replaced with MariaDB 10.2, or whatever. But then we'll get to the second part of your question.
Yeah. The question is there a way to identify those orphan packages in the jails just in case there are more lurking?
So there is a way to identify the orphans, and I forget what it is off the top of my head.
It's certainly an option to package to work with the
part
jail.
Of package query, I think. And there's a way to find packages that are orphaned.
Yeah, to check all these dependencies and the
Well, I think
ones
it's mostly if it doesn't exist in the repo anymore.
Yep. Package and then query. Or
Yeah, the package
help
query
check.
is a complicated way to run queries against the database. I know that Brooks
Package
came up
check?
with this previously. No, package check is for checking the package that's already installed.
Oh, right. Yeah, the ones you already have.
I wonder if package audit also would notice that.
So you were live
yes, we'll
fixing
have to
that.
maybe get back to you.
Yeah, or someone else knows and will notify us. There are ways, because they thought about this problem because of updates in jails and systems in general, and put that into package. And there's certainly a flag to cover that. But MariaDB in this case was special because they had this change that Ellen mentioned. But always good to have upgrades and newer versions, especially in jails, because you want those on the security side as well, even though if someone breaks into those, they cannot get very far. But it's still annoying to clean up. Yeah, someone would know. So anything else we don't have from this question? No, I think we covered everything. Yeah, I think that's about it. So again, thanks for watching this episode. We'll be back next week from our exciting trip to FOSDEM with a lot of information from the conference itself. We gave a couple of talks there, and we'll talk to you about everything that we learned, everything that we saw there, and the people we met. So see you next week.